Hey everybody, I'm Sierra,
I'm Ben.
and welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week, Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
I'm sure everybody loved you breathing into the microphone like that.
You're probably right. They did. You're welcome. I mean, if they wanted me to say you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, the show must go on.
Yes, it should. It must.
It must, because literally 20 minutes ago, right before we sat down to do this, Ben and I were both in the kitchen making dinner for our kids. And I reached into the refrigerator and somebody, I don't know who, so I will not put blame on anyone, put the cheese in the wrong spot when they put dinner away.
That's her subtle, not so subtle way of saying I did something wrong.
Or it could have been the kids. I don't know. But so I had to reach in towards the back where the cheese got tossed. And when I did that, when I brought the cheese back, it knocked over a container of extremely spicy salsa, which then proceeded to very rapidly drop to the ground and splash up. Well, so rapidly that I couldn't blink, and a dollop of salsa,
hot salsa
went into my eyeball.
Sierra's eye. It didn't go well.
The pain and burning that ensued over the next 15 minutes was wild. It literally felt like there was a fire or coal, like some ember in my eyeball.
And I told Sierra that, come on, we got something
Yeah,
to
I
do.
wanted to lay down and rest and put an ice pack on my eye. I can barely see right now.
Expecting unsolved mysteries. They've waited 30 plus years for this.
We have a dedicated, humongous, coast to coast, and this week worldwide following.
Worldwide.
And what would we do without them? So yeah, I'm here. I'm going to do my very best, guys, but reading right now is a little tricky. But we're here, and we're going to recap Season 1, Episode 23 of Unsolved Mysteries for you. Ben, was there something you'd like to share with the class?
I'm texting with my friend.
Yeah, I know.
I am.
I'm going to take your phone and I'm going to read your text messages out loud to everybody.
It's important.
Okay.
All right.
I doubt it.
It is.
Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Okay, I'm about to tell you some of the places we got downloads this week.
I can't wait.
Okay? Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I don't know where that's at, but I'm excited.
In Tennessee.
Because Tennessee is one of my favorite places.
Yeah, we know.
San Francisco, California, and they downloaded the Escape from Alcatraz.
Well, they heard. So I did a media blitz.
Oh, did you?
In San Francisco. I said, hey, that island you guys have out there that used to have a prison on it, it's like we did a special on it.
We did a scoop on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't, but we recapped a scoop.
We recapped somebody else doing a scoop on it.
Yeah. And a trial.
And then Erie, Colorado. And Torrance, California. I took a couple, because we had a couple of new places this week. It just says North Carolina.
Well, I'm good.
So the whole
Maybe
state,
the whole state's listening to us right now.
Downloaded our episode, and then we had a couple of from. I take way too many pictures. Good night. We had a download from Hawaii, which I thought was cool.
How many pictures do you have on your phone?
We don't need to talk about that.
I'm just curious.
I have over 10,000, I think, on here.
10,000?
Yeah, but you know how many emails I don't have checked and all of that stuff?
I don't know how you do that.
You don't know how I do that?
No.
It actually doesn't bother me.
If Sierra opens her phone, there'll be emails.
The least
How
bit.
Many emails does it say you have not looked at or
right now at this exact moment?
Yeah.
17,369. And that's just in one email account.
Golly.
The other email account is 323.
That's not bad.
I have 5 notifications on one social media, 37 on another,
How many-
24 on another.
How many unread text messages do you have right now? That tells you. It gives you, because you have an iPhone.
I do.
And it has the little text thing.
The little
and then
texting
it tells
number
you
up
on
above.
The red.
251.
Golly, can you believe that?
I have 4 missed calls. My voicemail is probably full. Okay, so I found it. Southwark, W-A-R-K. That's definitely not how you say it, but it's in England.
Okay, we're across the pond.
And
Heyo.
Lambeth, Lambeth, also in England. Lambeth
Heyo.
and Southwark. Happy Valley, Oregon, and Cave Junction, Oregon.
I know where Happy Valley is.
So we've acquired several new locations.
We're
so we're
so
now
popular.
international.
Hey guys, listen, and this is a big deal because this episode is brought to you by. Just kidding, we don't have any sponsors. So
Brought to you by My Eyeball Hurts.
Yeah,
Or-
salsa, hot salsa.
It's not brought to you by Oreo, but I am secretly eating an Oreo. What if Oreo sponsored
You
us?
brought snacks?
I did. You know what? I got a lot of heat for giving you heat about eating during the podcast, so I brought a snack this time. I brought Oreos.
I didn't bring a snack. Oh
Well,
my gosh!
Sounds like
now
a personal problem.
Now I'm hungry.
Okay, and I don't think we've asked this question for a while, but I think you and I both have opinions. How do you think about this episode?
Oh my gosh!
I'm kind of with you on this one.
What?
This episode was rough to get through, and not because they were hard stories, but because 2 of them are boring. Ben has those 2.
Yeah, she gave me the boring ones, and it was
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
We're going to talk about World War One at some point.
Nope.
Nope. World War Two.
Yep.
Yeah. When it comes to like wars and stuff like that, I am terrible at that history. I'm also not super intrigued by it. So I kind of start to tune out.
I'm shocked by that statement. That's a very shocking.
Very
statement.
shocking.
Yeah.
Well, if we have any history buffs here, we have a story for you today that takes place in World War II. I'll be honest up front, don't know why it's on this show, but we'll get into that later.
Not a mystery.
Okay. Let's get started. Should I kick us off?
Yep.
Do you do that intentionally?
Nope.
Long pauses while intensely staring at me across the table?
No.
Yeah, you do. That's what I thought. Okay, our first story today is about Gus Hoffman. Okay. This story is bananas. 22-year-old Gus Hoffman was an avid musician and motorcycle rider, okay, living near San Jose, California. In 1977, he acquired a 1966 Harley Davidson Sportster. Side research, his dad owned some sort of mechanic shop of some sort. He'd worked for his dad, saved up money, and bought this bike from a neighbor from someone down the street. Okay? Spent a lot of time and effort and money to restoring it to mint condition. Now, here's the problem with this bike. Okay, this is not just your standard Harley Davidson. This Harley Davidson Sportster at the time was known to be affiliated with motorcycle gangs. Specifically, Hell's Angels. I did some research on this as well.
Oh, dear.
And the Harley Davidson Sportster is what was most popular for several dangerous motorcycle gangs at this time, as well as today is the same style of motorcycle that is featured in TV shows and movies that sort of encapsulate that whole...
Sons of Anarchy.
Yet, I never watched that show. Did you?
No.
No.
No, I'm not.
No.
I don't care for motorcycles.
Mm-mm.
I would never own one.
No. I don't get the appeal.
I understand the appeal. I can see. It is clear how it becomes a hobby.
It becomes a passion.
It's a way of life.
Yes.
I understand it, and I'm not even trying to speak ill of people that are into
No, I just think it was
motorcycles.
nothing.
It's just
It
not
was
my
not
thing.
part of my world at all growing up.
Yeah.
So it's not something that I've ever spent a lot of time around.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, yeah, like I said, this bike was known to be a criminal. Like criminals, bad guys wanted this bike. This was their cup of tea, as they say.
What cars do you think are associated with bad guys?
Cars.
Yeah.
Well,
you're a bad
if
guy.
we're watching a foreign TV or a movie with like the foreign spies and stuff like that, they're usually driving Mercedes or they're driving, what's the one with all the circles across it? Audi.
Audi.
Those
Do you think
tend to
that
be,
maybe
but
that those are just because they're European cars. So
well, that's
why?
usually like what movies do bad guys are in. The guy that goes to save his daughter, Liam Neeson. Is that his name?
Uh-huh.
He goes to France, I think, and I think a lot of bad guys drive that. Sometimes I've seen bad guys on mopeds in movies.
I'm just saying, what car would you associate with a bad guy? If you saw him driving
Ford
down the road.
F-150s.
Wow. Just like that, huh?
Just like that.
I drive a Ford F-150.
No, I know. I have no idea. Do you have one that you think comes to mind? I've just said European cars because most of the TV detective movie bad guy good guy shows you watch, somehow Europe's involved.
The Pinto.
The Pinto.
Yeah, if I saw
Nobody drives a
if I
Pinto
saw a guy
anymore.
driving a Pinto, I'd say you're a bad guy.
You're a bad guy.
You're a bad guy.
That is so funny. Okay, so this bike caused a stir in the household.
It sure did.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. This family, I'm not sure where they were living, or they must have had more of a beat on things, and maybe it's because their son was into
California.
motorcycles. It's California. It caused so much of a rift in the family that his parents ultimately gave him an ultimatum. Get rid of the bike or move out of the house. They were so nervous having this bike in the house, they wanted it out. And so
They were like, listen, Hell's Angels
Yeah.
is on the hunt.
they're looking for him. Well, and I will say, the mom, you can tell, feels terrible that she had this conversation with her kid. We've seen this now twice now where a parent gives an ultimatum for a child and then it quickly turns tragic. So she lets us know she didn't actually really want him to move out. They were just really concerned about the nefarious people that might be after this bike and that having it in the house, because he was working on it in the garage with the garage door open, was going to attract the wrong
Just
kind of
wearing
people.
a leather vest.
So they agreed, though, that he could finish it and sell it. That was the terms they came to. So that day comes around July 4th, 1978. Gus polishes off that motorcycle. In the Unsolved Mysteries, he's given it a once down.
Okay.
Showed it off to his brother and told him that he was going to take it out for a handlebar ride.
A what?
No.
A spin?
A spin.
All right.
He was going to take her around the block a couple of times, okay? Just a short little ride, okay? He pulls away and is never seen again.
What are the freaking chances?
What are the chances? This
I
story
don't
is
know.
nuts, you guys.
I know. It is terrible.
It is terrible. So the mother, her name is Rose, becomes concerned. Actually, on my side research, it was the next morning. They woke up on July 5th and their son wasn't home. And they instantly were concerned. They contact the police and they were brushed off and given the famous line. Not 24 hours.
Gotta wait 48 hours.
48 hours. So I did some research on this as well.
So much research.
I just want people to know this has never been a rule or a law or written down. And at least police departments will tell you now that it's never been. It somehow kind of got carried away with that theory and belief that people needed to wait. And this came from a prosecutor's website that I read. If you call your local police department to report someone missing of any age and they tell you have to wait, hang up and call back and ask for a different detective. It is not true. In fact, most of these things could be, these first 48 hours are super critical, as we will actually go to find out in this story. But this mom does not take that for an answer. She is the mother of all mothers. You do not mess with this woman. Rose decides she's going to go out and look for him herself that day. So she starts canvassing the neighborhood and actually goes down to the street to a gas station where one of Gus's friends worked. He told her that the day before, he had seen him pull up to the intersection on his bike, and that the friend saw 2 other bikers and a blue Monte Carlo riding close behind him.
Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo.
That's a
bad guy car. I don't even know what it looks like. So
looks like a Monte Carlo.
Looks like what bad guys drive?
Yeah.
So he only noticed this, 1, because it was his friend, but 2, that those bikers had come into the gas station earlier and were, quote, mean to him. A second witness claimed that they'd stopped Gus, they'd seen an argument, and him threaten with chains when they pulled away. The Monte Carlo and the motorcycles followed him. The reenactment on this, you guys, first off, the props department and the costume department went to town.
They did awesome.
They did awesome. But in the reenactment, this guy is swinging these chains around like a crazy person.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I'll be honest, I didn't know it was a thing either.
I mean, I'm pretty sure growing up as a kid, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh.
And Bebop and Rocksteady, I think, used a chain at one point in one. That's the last time.
What kind of car did they drive?
They didn't. Okay.
They took public
They might have had
transportation?
motorcycles.
Maybe they did have motorcycles.
Because they were from a biker gang. Yeah. Yeah. They took a couple biker gang guys with a rhinoceros and crap, now I forgot what the other, a pig.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He had his nose pierced.
Yeah, and they mutated them together, and they used a chain at one point. That, people, is the last time that a bad guy used a chain. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
The turtles put
There's
a
your history
stop
lesson.
to that. There's your history lesson. All right, so the 2 witnesses were actually even able to go as far as identifying the bikers. Michael Hodges, a member of the, quote, Forgotten Few motorcycle gang. The other was identified as Michael Stevenson. What?
Forgotten Few?
Yeah, Forgotten Few, F-E-W. Michael Stevenson was also a member of the same gang. He was known as a violent career criminal. However, investigators didn't have enough evidence to bring them in for interrogation. Instead, they went around and knocked on doors to other gang members, and nobody was willing to talk. So, enter Mama Rose again. Okay? She gets her friend Carol, and no joke.
Sure does.
For the next 10 years, these women go undercover and infiltrate motorcycle gang hangouts. They dressed up in what they believed biker women would wear. Tight pants, heels, bracelets,
crazy hair,
and, quote, wild hair.
Oh, wild.
Yeah. And let me tell you something.
Like, they was wild.
The reenactment actors, I felt like their hair even took it a step farther than anything I've actually seen come out of the 80s.
They did a good job.
Those girls' hair was, it was wild. There's no other words for it.
It looked like they just come off the back of a motorcycle with the wind just
They had Aquanet for days
hair.
going on.
Yeah.
Do you remember you probably don't, but when we were kids, there would have been like a rumor for a while. I don't know. Maybe this was just insider fake elementary school gossip
Probably.
that Aquanet and other aerosol hairsprays were contributing to the hole in the ozone layer. Do you remember the hole in the ozone layer? Was that a thing?
No, I don't. I didn't pay attention.
Was that the Mandela effect? Am I making that up?
I don't know.
How is the hole in the ozone layer? Does anyone have eyes on it? Let me know.
I don't know.
Carol, the BFF, literally this is the friend that we all need. If your friend comes to you and says, "Hey, don't ask any questions, but I need you to put on tight pants and a pair of heels. We're going out."
Grab a gun.
Grab a gun. Carol says they let everybody know over the next 10 years to not mess with them because they were carrying a loaded handgun. But then also on the side, in this interview, she lets us know it never was really loaded.
I'm just saying, don't say you have a loaded handgun if you don't have a loaded handgun.
But what was your plan with that gun? If something was to happen.
Someone said, all right, let's find out.
Yeah. So these women spend the next 10 years going around and questioning anyone, showing photos, and trying to gather leads about her son, Gus. She paid for information, and everything that she found, she shared with the police. Okay. Where are the police?
I knew this was going to come.
I knew you knew this was going to come because first they tell you, call back in 48 hours. She is out there canvassing the neighborhood the next day. And then we get an interview from a detective who's like, this was great. She was giving us all these leads. And I would think most cops are like, please do not go undercover and put yourself in dangerous situations. Because guess what? We are sworn oath holders that will do this for you.
First off, he didn't say it was great. He just said she was giving us every lead she came across.
AKA the only leads that were there because we didn't do anything.
Okay. No. See, I disagree.
They didn't do anything for at least 48 hours.
Okay, we could make that point.
Okay.
But they do present the case like the police didn't do anything. There's no way the police came up with all those names by not doing anything.
They got the two names from the witnesses that the mother found. So
they find these people. They brought them in. The people identified who they were. Then they went around and they canvassed all the other people to the point where they were trying to build a case. And then we're going to find out in the update, they clearly had more names than what they even gave us in the beginning. I just think the police, when they interviewed, didn't share a lot of what they did.
Maybe.
I think they did more than what it was presented on the show.
Well, they did such a good job that Rose hired a private detective, private investigator.
I have my thoughts on this private investigator.
Who had connections with motorcycle gangs. He set up a meeting with a girl of some sort. And we see this reenactment. And I actually read about this more in depth on a different news article. That this girl was so scared for her life, but she wanted to share this information with her. So we see an RV set up and Rose getting into the front seat, and then we see a silhouette of a girl behind like a blanket. And she wants Rose to know that her son is dead and that he had been tortured for up to 5 days before being killed. And this was heartbreaking. We get the mom interviewed at this point. Just begging, telling us this story that she begged this girl to go to police and tell her what she knew. And the girl just couldn't. And she even, I guess, brought it up to the investigator, the private detective. And he said he couldn't force her to do that either because she was in fear for her life and he didn't want to contribute to potentially the end of her life happening. So Rose believes that the bikers intimidated Gus into going with them to some sort of unknown home. She believes they forced him into the garage, tortured him, and murdered him. However, she has no evidence at this point to prove her theory. Then, On July 19th, 1986, Stevens, one of the original guys named, was killed during a failed extortion attempt. With him dead, investigators re-questioned former motorcycle gang members and other witnesses who now felt comfortable and safe to talk. And they said that Gus had been taken to Stevens' home where he was tortured and murdered.
Yeah.
Yep. So, the mystery here is we know that Gus is no longer alive, but his mother is desperate to find his remains and to try to give him a proper burial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want the update?
Give me the update.
Okay, hold on. Whoa, I scrolled too far in my notes. Dang it. Michael Hodge was convicted of first-degree murder on this case in 1990. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and he died while serving his sentence. The two other men that were in the Monte Carlo, who also participated in Gus's murder, were identified as members of the same gang, Forgotten Few, Richard Dollar and John Stell, both convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, to date, none of Gus's remains have ever been found. So I read in another news article that went more into depth about some of the confessions or things that might have been said during the interview. It sounds like these gentlemen circled him at a stoplight and kind of forced him into a different area of town, to a garage. Told him to just come into the garage, have a conversation, have a beer, and talk about buying his motorcycle.
Yeah, because that always...
Yeah.
That's how you start a
That's
sale.
how you yeah. And it sounds like he went into the garage and never came out. So, trigger warning. It sounds like over the next 5 days, not only was he tortured and beaten, but he was forced to perform oral copulation on all of the gang members on multiple occasions before they dismembered him and dumped him in different landfills, is the working theory based on some of the things that these gentlemen said when they were brought in.
Yeah, that's awful.
I know. What makes me angry about this is that if the police had listened at first and gotten these people's names, it is possible they could have found him alive.
Yeah.
That 48 hours, in that time, the mother was able to get the names of these two. And the fact that one of the guys said that they took him to one of the other gang members' house. So his location, I am sure, was known to law enforcement.
Well, yeah, this guy was already known. They knew who he was instantly once his name come up.
Yeah. And in fact, when it came up, they told us on Unsolved Mysteries, or the mom did, Rose, that once they realized who their son had had a brush-in with, to just
assume the worst.
Assume the worst about what was happening. I mean, there's a handful of tragedies in this story, but that is, when I heard or read the kind of some of the reports that he actually had been kept alive for several days, that was a gut punch. So if you have any information regarding the disappearance of Gus Hoffman in any way, shape, or form, his mom might still be alive. I couldn't find any record of her passing. She's still, if that's the case, if not, he has siblings, I'm sure would love to be able to give him some kind of proper end of life ceremony. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I had the sneezels.
The sneezels?
Yeah. Please contact the San Jose, California Police Department at 408-227-4141 one. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Ben.
All right, after that downer, you ready for a little bit of a better story?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, there's no dismemberment.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
No missing child to bring home to their parent?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, it is. We're going to talk about Charles Lindbergh. Kind of. Not really, but that's where the
I
story
would say
starts.
not really, but yeah.
But
We're going to kind of talk
his
about
child was kidnapped.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He was. Good
Yeah.
good true crime fact, Ben.
That's not true crime. That's just history, okay?
History and true crime tend to weave together.
But on May 21st, 1927, Charles Lindbergh did what, Sierra?
He sailed across the ocean blue.
Sailed? Nope.
Nope, that was Columbus. He flew across the ocean blue. My eyeball hurts.
He flew.
He flew across the ocean blue.
Nonstop from
Yep.
New York to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how long it took?
6 hours.
Wow. You think 6 hours?
I don't know. I think that's how much a commercial. I think that's how long a commercial flight is now. I'm gonna guess it was like a solid 20 something hours.
33 and a half
Okay.
hours. So it's a long time. You got to stay awake the whole
Hard
time.
pass.
Hard pass.
I would love to go to Australia someday, but just the thought of being on an airplane for 14 or 18 hours.
My dad used to travel
Yeah.
for work when I was a kid, right around 2000. And because he was doing stuff for computers
Yeah,
for
he was
the
prepping
Y2K.
for Y2K, which is
It's
so
scary
funny.
stuff. But
For people that don't know what that means, I feel like that is something in history. We don't even talk about the fear of Y2K and what.
It was a big deal.
It was a
People were
huge
freaking
deal.
out about it.
And then nothing happened.
So he had to go to Australia and New Zealand multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think it was a 24, 26 hour flight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That gives me anxiety. I think I'd have to be medicated.
Yeah. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. So, like I said, May 21st, Charles Lindbergh did his flight. But did you know? We'll find out here. History
Is being questioned again.
Again. Well, kind of, but not really. 10 days earlier, there was 2 Frenchmen who tried to make the attempt to beat Charles.
Yeah, it was like the race to space.
It was kind of a race. It's
Yeah.
a big deal. And back then it was a big deal.
This was shortly after World War One, and so I think there was some just let's do something fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Charles Nungesser and Francis
I'm gonna need you to
Coley.
say that with a French accent, please.
No, it's not
Yes.
going to happen.
Pepe
But
Le Pew?
Robert Stack does a good job of saying
Robert
it.
Stack. Man, we lost a real star when he left us.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a gentleman and a scholar.
I found out they don't tell us the exact date, but it was actually they left on May 8th. So
Okay.
it was more than 10 days. But Charles Nungesser, he was I guess he was a pretty famous pilot.
He was a very decorated pilot.
From World War One.
Yeah. See? Facts.
So, anyways, they had a plane. I'm not going to say the French name, but it's called the White Bird. That's what it's called. La Osa Blanc or something like that.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Something. It's called the White Bird. I can't say it because I don't speak French, all right? Anyways, they're trying to fly from Paris to New York. And they were planning on landing it in the harbor.
I thought that was hilarious.
Next to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, haha, suckers. Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be a watertight aircraft.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they set off to do this. They were last seen off the coast of France.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
Never to see him. Never to
What
be
was his
seen
famous
again.
last words to his wife?
Oh, yeah. One of them said, "This is my last...
She didn't want him to go.
This is my last adventure.
But he said, I promise my last flight.
My last adventure, my last crazy thing I'm going to do."
He
And
had
Robert Stack
apparently
tells
never
it-
seen
tells
the
us.
movie Scream and learned the rules that you never say, I'll be right back. Yeah.
Exactly. especially in a scary movie.
Especially in a scary movie.
Never say I'll be right back. Or let's split up. Never say that in a scary movie.
Don't. No, and don't run up the stairs.
Never.
There's nowhere to
when
go.
you're running away from someone, don't go upstairs. Okay? You're running out of options when you go upstairs. All right? Anyways, that's how you avoid a scary movie.
Yeah.
All right. Fast forward to 1971. Jim Reed, he's out hunting, and he comes across this moss mound. And this is in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts looking at it, and under this moss and dirt and all that is an engine.
Supposedly.
Well, Jim Reed says he's a mechanic.
Yeah.
So he says instantly he recognizes it's not a diesel engine. It's not a car engine. He even explains that the cooling system is weird. He goes, I know this is an aircraft engine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he never finds it again.
Oh,
he walks off.
That's where my supposedly comes from. But
he walks off, tries to recount
multiple
his
times
steps.
tries to retrace the steps and can't find it. Yeah.
Can't. So we get an aircraft archaeologist to talk here. So here's, we don't really.
What
here's
spurred
the
this question?
I don't know.
Okay.
But our mystery here is, hey, was Charles Lindbergh the first person to really fly across the Atlantic, or did these two Frenchmen do it, even though they were never seen again?
Yeah. I guess we missed the word
thing.
whether successfully they
Here's
made
my
it across.
You kind of have to live to tell the tale.
Yeah,
say
that's the thing. But point
to say you're the first one to do
right?
something. But
yeah.
Okay.
Do we give Amelia Earhart credit for like the flight that she disappeared on? What was she doing? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I actually had to research her a little bit.
Okay.
Because of this aircraft archaeologist. So she was the first female to fly across the Atlantic.
Yes, but she survived that flight.
When she disappeared, she was trying to fly the whole world.
She was trying to circle the globe.
Yep.
Okay.
With multiple, obviously, you can't do that. Multiple stops. And she'd made one stop. She never made this next one. That she disappears somewhere in the Pacific.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Okay.
Okay. Back to our story.
Okay.
All right. So we get our aircraft archaeologist. Are you ready for this guy? Rick Gillespie.
Gillespie.
Yeah. Yeah. And his wife, Pat Thrash. Are you ready for our first quote from Rick Gillespie?
Rick
he comes in.
Loves airplanes.
Yeah. So we find out he's into this mystery. Mm-hmm. He wants to know if these guys really did it. He wants to find this aircraft.
Yep.
To prove that they made it to America.
Yep.
And he's in it to win it.
Yep.
To the point where he's quit his job to do this.
Yes.
Kind of. So
reminds me of what was the guy in the Treasure Seeking?
So they kind of present him as this crazy. I come to find out this guy, he actually sold. I read about him because he's actually still alive. He wrote a book about Amelia Earhart. That's why. That's why I was researching it. But he was he sold aircraft insurance, and he also did investigations for aircraft crashes.
Okay,
so he
this
actually
was a little bit in his field of expertise.
It very much is in his field. And he didn't just quit his job. He quit his job and opened like a nonprofit to do this stuff for a living. And it's called the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery. Oh. So he like started a whole program.
Okay. So it wasn't like he walked away from his life and was like putting himself in financial ruins.
Yeah, I mean, he does get a lot of flack from other people in the industry.
Oh.
Right. But he started, you know what he started?
What?
A society.
There's another one.
There's another society.
You can start a society for anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a society for podcasters.
All right. But I love Rick's, his first quote to us, okay? Mm-hmm. He says, talking about trying to find this plane, it's very much like trying to assemble a jigsaw puzzle. And little bit by little bit, the pieces come together and make a picture. And we have enough of a picture now to convince us that we're on to the trail. Yeah.
But
that's his. So we're putting this jigsaw together to get a picture to know that we're on the trail, but we don't have anything.
But we also need the full picture to understand what we're working with here. Or if we can answer the question.
Nope, absolutely not.
Don't ask any more questions.
All right. Anyway, so Rick Gillespie is convinced that this plane went down somewhere near Machias, Maine. Mm-hmm. Machias. So he starts going around. They rent a helicopter.
Yep.
With infrared technology, which I can't imagine that was great in the 80s.
I know, but what did they think they were going to find?
Metal?
Infrared detects heat, doesn't it?
Sarah, these are all great questions. Great questions. This is my other quote from him. Because he says they're trying to find this, they're trying to use technology to come up with this mystery.
Is this about where we're going to find out what their chances of what the chances are that they're going to find anything at this point?
He just says, from the very beginning of this project, we felt that technology would be the answer. And we have driven ourselves nuts trying to find the technology. And time again, what has worked is people. People have succeeded. People have led us closer. And I want to tell you, Rick, people have not. They've told you stories and have kept this wild goose chase going. That's what people do.
Yeah.
They give you crazy stories.
Yeah.
To the point where that's what keeps wild goose chases going. Anyways, so people is the answer.
Here, enter stories.
Enter stories. He starts talking to people. There's a resident named Harold Vining.
Blueberry farmer.
He's lived in the area for 77 years. He's older. He tells a story that sometime in May, he's distinctly heard an airplane.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
So he heard an airplane. He didn't see it, but he heard it. Then we hear from other people who also
no one sees it.
No one sees it. We hear from another guy who says that his brother heard it and then heard it crash, supposedly, somewhere off. Then there was a couple driving and they heard it and stopped their car, but they also no one saw this airplane.
Okay, so when I was watching this and I heard the blueberry farmer's reaction and then the couple getting out of their car, I was aghast.
Okay.
Because I have grown up in small town Oregon, nowhere near a major airport. Myrtle Creek is 4 hours from the nearest airport. However, we live in Tucson now where there's an Air Force base and an airport. My whole life, I have heard and seen planes flying overhead, right? No matter where I've lived. I lived in San Diego where the airplanes literally drop out of the sky into the airport in downtown San Diego.
Uh-huh.
So to pull your vehicle over and look skyward, I was so confused. But then Blueberry Farmer raised a very valid point. This, to them, was notable in the fact that it did not exist in their day-to-day normal lives.
Okay.
And so I will say...
Yes, in 1927, planes were not flying all over the place.
Obviously, yes. Now I realize that, but at the moment I was watching this TV show, I was like, what are these people going off about? Being so aware that at a certain time they saw a plane. I do not discredit that they didn't actually. This was a memorable moment in each of their lives. However, to be able to look back and know around the exact date that it happened, I cannot imagine. Notable or not.
Yeah, so we're going to get into it.
Okay.
I'll dive into this. Okay, let me just finish telling you what Unsolved Mysteries tells us. They then search the woods. They find a piece of wood. Okay, yes, people, I cannot make this up. They find a piece of wood, and
they bury the lead sometimes in Unsolved Mysteries.
Rick Gillespie tells us this wood is not made from North America, so it has to be from this plane because no one else in 50 some years has had anything in the woods made of wood that might be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just saying. Anyways, I'll say it afterwards. They end up finding 23 fragments of wood that put together make 2 meters long, which supposedly is the length of the wing.
But then the next thing, or roughly before this, we also find out that every single material except for the engine that was used to make airplanes at this time in the moist, foggy,
it would
wet,
have been disintegrated.
Would have disintegrated.
Yeah, they tell us that. Then they tell us they find wood.
Looking for? There should be nothing there. Yeah. It's disintegrated. It does not exist.
I know.
This seems more fruitless than the Gold Hills in Arizona. The thing.
Coming from someone, I've spent some time out in rural areas.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been in some mountains and some areas.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I have found some weird crap in some middle of the nowhere places. Mm-hmm. So you telling me you found a piece of wood that's not from the area in the woods 50 plus years later?
Yeah.
Okay. I ain't buying.
Yeah.
And that's actually people that are in the field. In this field, supposedly, I don't know, whatever this aircraft field is,
they're in.
They really hit Rick Gillespie hard that he makes big deals out of nothing.
I think he gets a little overexcited.
He gets
about
overzealous
and
kind of says he found something when he really has zero evidence that he found anything. Anyways, that's where Unsolved Mysteries leads us. They're like, hey, listen, did they do it? Is it in the woods of Maine? And, these people, they heard, they saw something. If so, pretty much what they say is these men deserve their place in history. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Listen, if they did do it, it's too bad that they didn't make it. But let's be
terrible.
very clear. These guys are actually very well known in France. They have a statue of them on the coast by France. It's not like they're not revered in history over there.
Interesting.
So I was a little so this was a big deal over there. I read an article. It actually, word had gotten back that they'd made it, and they were celebrating in the streets.
Oh, sad.
Yeah. Then people were pretty upset once they found out that they hadn't. So these guys were, especially this Charles Nungusser, he's a very decorated.
Okay, so at least in their home nation, these people, the lead hasn't been buried on them that they weren't.
Yeah. So, and here's my thing about these people hearing planes. Mm-hmm. Possible.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I will say I noted that they were aware about the kind of race to.
Yes, everyone knew.
Everyone knew,
and
that
everyone
this was
knew
happening.
Their route, what they were supposed to go. They were supposed to make it in about 40 hours.
And so I think people paying attention to stuff in the sky was not, but yet to know the exact date of the thing.
So, but here's the thing: when they didn't make it, everyone knew. Oh, they haven't made it yet, and the military in Newfoundland. A couple days after they didn't make it, guess what they did? They sent up planes looking for them to fly around to try to find them. Newfoundland's not far from.
Yeah, that's like right across the pond. Yeah,
and
I mean, not even right across the pond in that way. It's just north of there.
Rick Gillespie's trying to say no. They heard it on May 9th.
There's no way they could have known.
Dude, it could have been May 11th or May 12th when they're flying planes trying to look for these guys.
Unless someone was like, hey, that was my wedding day and we were having an outside wedding and we looked up and saw an airplane. Like, one guy was fishing and one guy was cutting wood. It was a normal day for everybody.
Yes, and you're trying to say this 50 years later. You're recounting these. So it wasn't that there was no planes in there. They were sending out search parties. They did send out some planes to look. Anyways, I don't know. Did they make it? We don't know.
It's never been verified.
I looked it up. It is still nothing has ever been found. We've never
Everyone ever found that engine again?
Nope. Nothing is ever found. But this Rick Gillespie continued to do this work. Like I said, he then actually wrote a book about Amelia Earhart's, and he has a theory on that she landed on some remote island and got stranded and died that way instead of just falling in the ocean. I don't know.
I've heard that theory before, too, that she landed somewhere. But
And here's the thing. He then goes on. Rick Gillespie also then starts buying stories that they crashed in Newfoundland. So he'd sent a party up there. He searched ponds. He heard different stories up there of how they crashed.
He seems a little eccentric.
He's chased a lot of things. I don't know, but that's your story.
All right.
There you go.
There you go. If you have any information for Rick Gillespie, reach out to him.
Nope. Leave it. Leave it.
Okay. So I am going to tell you the story of Miss Patsy Wright. Okay? 3 a.m., the morning of Patsy's death, right up the front. We're going to find out that Patsy is the victim of the story. Makes a phone call to her sister, Sally. Sally is in bed at 3 in the morning with her husband, Steve. They were awakened by a frantic call from Patsy. Steve answered, and Patsy said that she needed to talk to her sister. When he asked her what the matter was, she said she couldn't breathe. He turns the phone over to his sister, and Patsy tells her sister, Sally, that she had taken some cold medicine and something was really wrong with her. When Sally asked for more information, she got no response, and Patsy had collapsed and dropped the phone. Pretty dramatic way to be woken up.
Yep.
First off, good job for people even answering their phone at 3 in the morning. If you call me at 3 a.m., my phone is on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
Do people take phone calls in the middle of the night anymore?
Yeah. If someone called me at 3 a.m.,
Your phone's going to ring? You don't have your phone on Do Not Disturb at night?
it's on vibrate. I don't have it on Do Not Disturb.
Oh, I have mine on.
And it's right next to me. It'll light up.
The problem is mine's on Do Not Disturb almost 24/7.
Yeah, I know.
So when I lose my phone,
You
I
can't
can't
ever
find it.
Now, if you need something, you can call me. I will answer, because if you're calling me at 3 a.m.,
Something's
that means
wrong.
we got a problem.
Yeah.
And back then, your phone's ringing. It's loud.
Ringing. Yeah.
And if your phone rings like that,
It's waking you up.
you answer.
Yeah. So Sally then calls the police. But the problem was she didn't have her sister's address.
I can see that.
Well, and Patsy was living in a rental property at the time. So she couldn't send an ambulance over there. So they decide... I did some side research on this because there are a couple of holes in the Unsolved Mysteries episode.
They're just trying to tell the
Yeah.
story as quickly as possible.
So Sally and Steve hop in the car, drive to the house, and start banging down the front door. They're hollering and yelling.
Well, they try to get in.
They're trying to get in. The front door is
It's
locked.
locked.
Okay. And she didn't have a key because, again, this was a brand new rental property that her sister was living in. They were banging on the door. So she tells Steve to go around back. So as Steve is going around towards the back of the house, he notices that a window is cracked open. He uses that window to enter Patsy's bedroom, the main bedroom in the house. He sees her lying on the bed and notices that the lights are on and the television are on, and he runs past the bed, goes and gets his wife and lets her in, and then they come back into the bedroom together. Sally thought that her sister had just fainted. She and Steve tried to wake her up. That, unfortunately, doesn't work. So then she calls for an ambulance. Steve, at the same time, is trying to perform CPR on Patsy. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to it. While he did that, he claims green fluid came out of her mouth. And he spat it out on the bed in a nearby town.
Sears.
You guys, I am trying... Okay, we just needed to get through that sentence. Okay?
Have you ever had to give someone
Stop.
CPR?
No. But I don't even want to have this conversation. I don't do well with bodily fluids in my mouth. If green fluid came out of some... Okay. We're going to move on. A few minutes later, the paramedics arrive. I will throw up. Sally and
you are not. No,
Sally and Steve told them about the call and how they had found her. So they're kind of giving this information about how this is all happening. Okay?
Okay.
At first, Steve thought that Patsy was responding to the paramedics' revival attempts because he's interviewed telling us this.
Yeah.
Okay? But the guy has, and left, right, or center, no emotion while he's telling any of these stories. He's just like so monotone about it. But it's interesting that he's telling this, like, got to be one of the most traumatic experiences. And he's telling it like he's giving us a Sunday morning news report.
Okay, but when was this?
I don't know.
What year was it?
Dang it, I didn't write it down.
I'm just saying, if it's been multiple years, you've told this story.
I just, like I said, we've seen several of these interviews. I just always find it funny that you're hearing these crazy stories. And yeah, this person's probably told it 1,000 times. And so they're just telling it like you'd say something super cash.
Yeah, like a normal conversation.
Like a normal conversation. But he goes on in his normal conversation tone to tell us that he thought that Patsy was actually responding to paramedics and they were bringing her back because he could see the monitor going up and down. But it turns out that that was actually just because the paramedics were pushing on her chest. So Sally hops in the back of the the ambulance, good night, with the paramedics, to ride with her sister. Unfortunately, her sister doesn't make it. Sally nor the police at this point have any reason to expect foul play. Okay?
Yeah, I think they're all just pretty confused.
Yeah. At first, the family actually thought that she had died of natural causes. But in the phone call, Sally reminds people that Patsy had mentioned taking NyQuil. A common, for our foreign listeners, because we have so many of them, shout outs
people across
to the two people across the pond that downloaded our episode. NyQuil is a cold medicine, and nowadays we have like NyQuil for night and for the day. I'm going to guess back then maybe it was just that. It makes you very sleepy.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's me giving my input right
that's
there.
Ben acknowledging that he is a co-host at a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we should. I was going to say that earlier.
Okay, what?
You're the host.
No, we are co-hosts together.
I'm co-host. You're host.
Okay.
All right.
Are you just doing that so you can deter some of the responsibility, the little responsibility that you have?
100%. Absolutely. Definitely.
Okay, so the police collect the bottle of NyQuil. When they received the blood test results showing that strychnine had been detected.
Strychnine.
Yeah.
What's strychnine?
So I'm going to get into that in just a minute. They had the bottle tested, and the cold medicine contains a insane amount of strychnine. There was enough in that bottle to kill 8 to 9 full-grown men. What do you think that means, full-grown men? Are we talking like 220?
Hey.
Hey. 160?
Hey. Get some.
Almost 6 foot? Just shy?
Hey.
So it is. So this is what I would consider overkill. Whoever put this strychnine in the NyQuil wanted to make sure that the job was done. Okay?
I guess.
So I will ask you this question, and we don't have to get into it right now. Do you know what the Tylenol murders are?
No.
No, not even if just by me saying that, you've got no clue. That is
the first time I've ever heard of that.
So this happened on the cusp of the Tylenol murders very quickly. Someone had gone into stores and tampered with Tylenol and put poisoned capsules in it.
They didn't do it at the plant.
No. They did it at grocery stores because this was previous to the little plastic seal being around. So you could just open up a bottle of anything. There was also Excedrin that had been tampered.
Was there cotton in it?
Oh, that's right. You guys, you really... When we come to your town to do a meet and greet, I want all of you to hand Ben a cotton ball. He hates the feeling. And the cotton that comes inside the medicine capsules is the worst. One time I collected a bunch of it and I shoved it into his shoe. So he had to put his toes on it.
I hate touching.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And I hate touching cotton. It's the worst.
Okay, but this is important in the fact that 2 other cases had happened in the United States where someone with ill intent towards like a spouse had gone in, had tampered with medication that resulted in multiple deaths. So this is on the FBI's like forefront of their mind, right?
Okay.
So that's why they said in this that the very first thing that they do is rule out product tampering. So this hadn't been tampered with at the store or at a plant. This was done inside her home.
This was personal.
So the police believe that this had to have been someone close to Patsy because it was kind of an insider knowledge that if she at times had a hard time sleeping and she would take NyQuil to kind of help her fall asleep.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I got friends, and guess what? I don't know their nighttime routine.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to know someone.
I've gone on trips with friends and people like that, and I couldn't tell you what their nighttime routine was.
Yeah.
And so this had to be someone that was intimately involved.
And this is why I don't tell anyone my nighttime routine. This one tells to
nothing. I don't even know what Ben does. He makes me leave the room.
It's top secret because I still, after 17 years, it's possible.
It's possible that this is, I've been playing a long game. I don't want to give her
that opportunity. I'm keeping my eyes out.
But they do say that they had to consider Patsy putting the strychnine in the medicine herself.
The what?
Yeah, that this was suicide. It says it in the Unsolved Mystery. Just real quick that they had to that was also something that the police were considering.
I guess you have to,
she was alone, a quote unquote.
If you haven't eliminated anything, technically that's an option on the table, I guess.
Yeah, that's an insane way to go out. But I actually, in my side research, read a medical report. Now, this guy lived, but what are those things that live in the ground? Gophers? Moles? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, seeing how you only gave me those things that live in the ground. They have
really big teeth like beavers, but they're not beavers. Any hoozles.
Probably, I think you're going for gopher.
So
something like that.
He ingested intentionally a large amount of gopher poisoning because it had cyanide in it.
Are you telling me there's poison just for gophers?
I saw the bottle. They took a picture of it in the report.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either, but that's not something we deal with here in Arizona. And I don't think it was something we dealt with in Oregon. I don't remember my dad ever yelling at the gophers outside. They did have a bald eagle try to steal one of their ducks.
We're getting sidetracked here.
Anyways,
this is a long story. So
what I'm saying is that he ended up trying to take his own life that way, and it ended violently, and he was in the garage, and a neighbor found him and took him in. They were actually able to keep him alive, and he was fine. So that is one of the reasons that this theory is quickly ruled out. Okay. It has horrible side effects, including violent convulsions, muscle twitches, and the feeling of suffocation.
That's awful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrible way
It's
to go.
considered a very like a very extreme, cruel way to die. So, one, it's even rare in the fact that a lot of the times when people try to take other people's lives, they don't intend to inflict this upon them, let alone take their own lives that way.
Okay.
She also seemed to be living a pretty full life. She had 2 children. She was very close with them. She and her sister were successful businesswomen who, get this, owned wax museums.
And doing very
And
well.
not just like, hey, we own a business and we live comfortably.
A little boutique.
Their net worth was over $6 million.
All right, listen.
Okay.
Clearly,
I was unaware.
that wax was that lucrative.
I had no idea either. Have you ever even been to a wax museum?
No.
I haven't. I've
Maybe.
never even had a desire to. I think when we were in Eastern Tennessee, what was that town we were in with Dollywood? There was a lot of that kind of like
Forge.
Pigeon Forge has kind of a lot of that silly hokey stuff,
Yeah.
right? There might have been one there. It was not even on our list, and we did some silly things there.
I'm thinking about starting a business.
Okay.
All right.
What if we did it all on people from true crime?
Nope. I'm out. All right. Keep going, please.
Okay. So their father had actually founded the wax museums, and then their long-term plan was to open a Ripley's, believe it or not. Patsy was a horseback rider and had just purchased 3 prized quarter horses, and she planned to train them herself. She was also, this is why she was living in a rental home, in the process of buying a 30-acre ranch in Texas. She also, she'd set an alarm for the next morning. Typically, those are things you don't see of someone that's planning on not waking up in the morning. Okay? So we get the person, we get at this point a medical psychologist who goes over the stuff, and she is the one that determines that it was highly unlikely for Patsy to take her own life. She was not even at high risk for it.
Did you see that outfit?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in Texas in the 80s. The hair
I'm just saying.
and the outfits were wild.
The like bow tie thingamajigger she had going on. Yep. It was wild. Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry.
Yeah. So we start to then at this point find out that the Arlington Police Department begins to investigate this as a murder. So that we learn on that the night before her death, she attended a dress rehearsal for a Halloween show at the museum. She had left around 9 p.m., went to a bar with a friend, and then went home. Once home, she made and received several long-distance phone calls. Later that night, she put on her pajamas, made a late-night snack. Okay.
Everybody wants a good snack.
I love a good midnight snack. One of my favorite is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I want a snack right now.
Well, you can't have one. The cat's meowing at the door.
I already know this. Just keep going.
Then she took the cyanide-laced cold medicine, and shortly after, she called her sister and brother-in-law. Okay, so Sergeant Galveston gives us 2 clues that made him think that the murder was probably someone Patsy knew very well. First, her burglar alarm was not set on the night that she died, and she had put one in after she had several break-ins. Secondly, only those close to her knew her habits. Okay, so this is what the sergeant says his 2 clues are. He also believed that Patsy knew her killer, and he knew her. The first people questioned are Sally and Steve. Sally said it did not take them long to realize. She's interviewed at this point, and her hair is the closer to heaven, the closer to God, right? That's the saying with the hair in Texas. She had that covered. So she lets us know that it didn't take her long to realize that you keep looking at your watch. Do you have somewhere to go, Ben?
I always have somewhere to go.
That's the fourth time you've checked your watch.
I always like to keep track of time.
Okay. So she says again that she didn't take long for her to realize that the police were considering her a suspect and asked her some uncomfy.
Is that what she said? Uncomfy?
No.
I can't remember. They were
very uncomfortable situations, and she didn't want to go through it again. I mean,
fair.
Yeah, fair, right?
Yeah.
You own a business with your sister. They owned it 50-50, which means now the $6 million that you had $3 million worth of in your name.
Well, they say that she now inherits all of it.
She inherits all of it. No questions asked. Yeah.
So there's motive there. 100%.
Yeah, there is a motive for it. Yep. So, yeah, they look into her wealth comes from the wax museums.
$6 million.
$6 million.
Wax.
Okay, I know. They were also the center of social life in the town where Patsy died. The museums were inherited to Sally and Steve, the brother-in-law.
Her husband.
Mm-hmm.
There was rumors.
According to Patsy's friends, she did not like her brother-in-law. She was infuriated that he had spent Sally's inheritance and then actually gone into debt. So that's something to pay attention to. Steve was in need of money.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's motive, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. In fact, before she died, not even very long before she died, she started making arrangements that if anything was to happen to her, Steve would not get access to any of the money from the museums or the money from her horses. I mean, that is gut intuition, I feel like. And I am not that is just my speculation in the fact that she had to feel some kind of way about this guy to the point where she felt the need to protect himself.
Yeah.
Okay. So Steve is also interviewed on Unsolved Mysteries, and he said that the police asked him questions he never thought that he would have to be asked, and he was hurt and surprised by their behavior. However, he did understand that some of the questions needed to be asked.
He says that he understands that it was necessary that he went through it.
And I think this note is harped on a little too much, in my opinion, because we don't have any evidence of Steve actually performing CPR. But the authorities, the biggest reason they clear Steve, he does pass a polygraph test, but they point out that Steve would have never poisoned Patsy and then performed CPR on her. But I will say, and I found this in several reports, Patsy was found on the bed.
Yeah. Well, they do it in the reenactment.
I know they do it in the reenactment, but sometimes reenactments are wrong, right? Because to me, at first, I was like, who does CPR on the bed? Idiots.
Well, okay. First off, you're talking about the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has been...
okay, fair.
And
I'll give you that.
If you haven't been trained properly to do CPR...
Okay.
And if you notice when he says it, he doesn't say he performed CPR. He says, I worked on the chest and then I did mouth to mouth. He doesn't even use the acronym. It's clear this guy isn't very well trained in CPR. So I wasn't surprised that they attempted to do it
I guess I'm just saying you're taking his word that he performed CPR. Regardless of whether innocent or not, that is a big thing to assume innocence in someone who does have a motive and say, well, he clearly didn't do it because he could have gotten poison in his mouth.
Yeah, but they don't tell us the evidence, but there very well could. If he's saying that he was getting it and spitting it out, there would have been evidence there probably leading them to believe that what he was saying was true.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like they took a lot of stuff from the crime scene. I tried to look into it to see if there was any fingerprints, DNA, forensics, if any of the spit up from that he said there was no reports of any of that ever. But again, this was a long time ago.
Again, we're probably not
those
getting
are just
everything.
my spidey senses saying, I think it's a big thing to assume innocence based on that. Okay? So Sally and Steve and other family members voluntarily took polygraph tests. All of them passed them. So now we
They
go
talk about polygraphs like it is a open and shut.
Yeah, and again, the time frame. I think polygraphs had way more weight back then than they did.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we go on to the next usual suspects. We have an ex-boyfriend and an ex-husband. Okay? Her boyfriend at the time, Larry Todd, was questioned reportedly like he was out of the state or out of the city and he is not considered anything, the current boyfriend she had. Okay? Patsy's family suspected that Bill and Bonnie Alexander, a couple from the place where Patsy boarded her horses, had been involved with her death. The day before, she had written them a check. Shortly after the check, they filled in an amount of $4,000 and cashed it. Also, the day before her death, a friend who was helping her with her finances asked her if she had any outstanding checks. She said she didn't. However, they also discovered that Patsy's horses had been moved into the Alexanders' names. The Alexanders tells us they claim, not on Unsolved Mysteries, they're not interviewed on this, but that Patsy gave them the check and told them to add up what she owed them for boarding and contest fees. And she also claims that the horses were not in Patsy's name because, once again, she did not want her brother-in-law to be able to have access to these horses and the funds and stuff that was wrapped up in them. So there was also at one point that there was maybe some infidelity happening and that she was, but again, none of this is substantiated. So this is the biggest problem sometimes they have with this, is just like with the handyman, they're throwing out a ton of theories, but almost no evidence to back any of them up. So enter Leo Filks. He's a former boyfriend. He takes a polygraph test. Once again, we give a lot of weight to that, and passes. However, he still was wanted to keep an eye on him because he was concerned that he was aware of her nighttime routines. He also owned a chemical company, which led police to speculate that he may have access to the drug. An anonymous caller had also called in a tip that Leo had dated Linda Doohan, an Arlington woman who had been brutally murdered in 1987. Okay, she was an Arlington woman who drove a Corvette and ran with a fast crowd. That's what a news report said about her. She had been found by her sister in her bed, dead. But her neck had been cut. I'll say in 2005, DNA tested from evidence led to the identification of this woman's killer. He was tried and convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and he was already serving life sentence for another murder. So that's been solved. Leo lets us know he has no fears, and he admits that while devastated by Patsy's rejection, which he boldly says on television, that he had not been close with her in several months before her death. He said that they had been out a couple of times, but there was certainly no tension between them, and he insists that he did not kill her. Patty's ex-husband, Robert Cox, who I honestly think is probably the most likely of all these subjects, was another person questioned by the police. The two met in 1981. He also owned a wax museum. In 1983, they were married. During the marriage, he was verbally abusive towards her. She paid for almost everything. He gambled away most of his money. She contacted a counselor who worked with Robert from his previous wife, and the counselor called Robert a psychopath and told her to leave him. A year after the marriage, Robert and Patsy divorced. While they were separated, she obtained a restraining order against him, claiming that he had been harassing her. People also let law enforcement know that she was afraid of Robert. She believed that he had begun following her and watching her on multiple occasions, and that he threatened to ruin her. And he said that he knew people who could snuff her out. She was also going to testify against him in an upcoming civil suit between him and his insurance company. In February 1983, his warehouse had burned down in a fire, and he claimed it was an accident, but the insurance company believed that he had ordered the fire to be set. According to Sally, he had called Patsy on several occasions and asked her to change her testimony. He had ended up going on to win that lawsuit because she was not able to testify.
Shocking.
Yeah. She told him that she was going to tell the truth, and 10 days before the trial began, she was murdered.
Interesting.
He was the only person that was offered a polygraph test and refused to take it.
Instantly guilty.
He maintains his innocence and says that there's no evidence to suggest that he is guilty. On the night she died, there was 2 empty plates on the tray. I think that's a red herring. I think when you read a lot of the reports, they get really hung up that there was 2
That there
plates.
was someone there that night, supposedly.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. I put food on 2 plates. Some people don't like their food touching. I don't know. There could have been a million reasons for it. Maybe she left her dishes out. I don't know. But I don't think that that was enough to insinuate that there was some intimate dinner that happened late that evening in her room.
That's a clue.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'll kind of start to wrap this up since we're running a little long. This story is quite long for Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, but you're also telling extra stuff. That a lot of this stuff wasn't even in the story.
Yeah, sorry. I went too far down the rabbit hole, I guess.
Yeah.
So they receive some prank phone calls. We get an interview from
I did want to... How many stories?
I know. And Ben's new to
something
true crime. Almost every podcast I listen to where it talks about there's a death or someone missing, there
Then
are
someone
evil,
calls.
dirty, cruel people in the world.
What's going on?
I don't know.
People call after, and they're like, and it's suspicious, and no one knows who they are. What is going on? There's 2 things that happen. One, people clearly already know they're about to die, and they start telling everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2, people start calling the family after they're dead and saying weird things.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Anyways.
So on top of the prank phone call, the daughter's interviewed, and she talks about that. Listen, they were well aware that someone close to them did this.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
they
I think
spent the next several years at the funeral and every event wondering who this was that did this. Because it was someone that they obviously knew too. And that weighed heavily on them. As I think.
I mean, it is very clear.
Yeah.
It's someone, because here's the thing. Most people don't take cold medicine to go to sleep, to help them sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know that.
Yeah.
And to know that, again, like I said, you have to know their nightly routine. Most people don't know most people's nightly routine.
Yeah.
Unless you're extremely close.
Yeah. So that's kind of where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us. Are you ready for our update?
Yeah.
It's still unsolved.
I know. I looked into this one.
And actually, there has not been hardly any leads drummed up.
Nothing.
They said that since the Unsolved Mysteries episode came out, it almost went radio silence afterwards. There's not even news articles about this. The latest news article I found about it was like from 1989.
Really?
Yes.
Which is the year it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's 2 news articles by the same publisher, I think, that were published about a year apart from each other. And
do you think it's a conspiracy?
no. Yeah, this is from, let me see, I'm going to scroll up here. The Wax Museum Murder Mystery, August 1st, 1989. And then I think they did another one like in like 1990. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And so, I with the amount of money and the notoriety and that this woman was well known in her community, I'm quite amazed that this hasn't been solved. Strychnine was not easily available either.
Well, I was wondering that too, because even back then, they said it was very regulated. Not anyone could just buy it.
Yeah, this was no longer like some secret thing that was in,
So clearly that led to a dead end or led nowhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was actually really surprised because, like I said, this wasn't just a random act.
No, and I apologize. I went a little longer on that one, but I also feel like
But
I
there's
had
a
never
lot
heard this
to that
story
one.
before. No one is like reporting on it. There's several podcasts that have covered this story, but there has not been like any new leads or any even like attempt locally. We've seen multiple news reports on like local news headline stations of them redrumming up old unsolved cases to try to help get justice for family members. I don't know what the cat is doing. So if you
Dude,
hear
your
a noise
cat
in the
is-
background, he's mad because it's cold in the house and he has no fur.
Your cat's on one tonight.
He is on one tonight. He's ready for bed.
Probably.
Yeah. So I apologize for running long on that one, but I do think it's an important story. I highly recommend. There is a handful of podcasts on there. If you have any information, please reach out to local authorities. I couldn't even find a number of someone that would like take. And
I would have put money that this was
I
actually
would have
solved
too.
when I started hearing it, because
Yeah.
it is a wild story.
Yes.
And they actually...
This felt like a game of Clue to me. This woman had actually a handful of people that were close to her that were also the top suspects, or like what is that movie? The Glass Onion. All of that. Like it was these like eccentric kind of random things. You got equestrian horses and wax museums.
Well,
and
then I even read the wax museum got burned down and someone rummaged through and stole a ledger.
Yeah, I didn't even go into that whole aspect because
so
he was
there's
considered
more-
a suspect at one
Yeah,
point. And then
I
he
know.
got shot by police when he tried to run them over. And
It's-
a cop got stuck on his hood of his car.
It's wild.
Yeah, guys, I didn't even, I scratched the surface of this. We could have done a whole episode just on this story
When they
alone.
started the story, they're telling you, and we did this, we polygraphed this. I said, oh, we might not know now, but this one clearly got solved.
Yeah, well, nothing
30-something
was
years
burglarized from her house. This was done to end this woman's life.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
And it appeared that the police were investigating
Mm-hmm.
it. You know, it wasn't just I don't know. So, yeah, I was actually surprised when I looked in.
All right, can you quickly give us a rundown of the fourth story that I still am confused about how and why?
I don't know, but we get a story. This is about World War II. It's about a merchant ship. It's an oil tanker. And it's we're going to be talking about the guy named William Betts. He was the captain of the Muskogee oil tanker. So it transported crude oil up and down the Atlantic during World War II. So it was just taking supplies back and forth, which was a big part of the war too. So on February 2nd, 1942, so we've pretty much just entered World War II. We've only been in for a couple months. The Muskogee ship takes off. We find out later it took off from Wilmington, I think Delaware, right? Never heard from again.
Yeah,
His
gone.
poor wife and Ellen Betts.
Yeah.
It's a telegram from the company.
The reenactment gave me goosebumps because it looked like this woman, and I'm going to guess just based on in the reality that when you saw the man in the telegram come to you, the way he was dressed, because it was done they knew what was coming.
You knew what was coming, right? And she gets a telegram. The company just says, listen, the ship has disappeared. We have no idea what's happened.
Yeah, not even that it's gone, but that it's missing.
It's missing. A year later, after this has happened, her son George gets drafted. He goes and serves in World War II. Thankfully, he lives to tell the tale. So here's his family. Their father, he might not have been a soldier, but he was a part of the war by transporting crude oil, transporting supplies for the war effort, just disappears. And to them, they have no idea what has happened. But George tells us that in 1955, so, over 10 years after, he's at work and a friend shows him a book called The Sea Wolves. And it is about U-boats. And it tells a story that a U-boat, which is the German submarines during World War II, the U-123 had sunk a ship called the Muskogee. And it had said that
But this is based on German intelligence, right? From my understanding, because the Germans noted what happened to it. American side did not know what happened to it.
This, as of right now, this is just a book.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So George runs to his mom and says, "Hey, listen, was this dead ship? Yeah. Did it sail out of Wilmington? Yes." He's like, "I think I found out what happened to,
The
Dad."
ship. Yeah.
And it appears that it was shot by a U-boat. So that's what they come up with, or that's what they're trying to figure out. He's trying to figure this all out. And Robert Stack tells us, like, a lot of ships were sunk at this time. Just in 1942, 413 ships were sunk. 29,000 merchant sailors were killed in the war. And there was 34.
I don't mess around with the ocean stuff. That freaks me out.
There was 34 on the Muskogee. And this is, we were dealing with this. U-boats were coming over to our coast, and they were trying to hurt the war effort.
This was a big part of the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By taking out supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and part of that, unfortunately, a lot of men died because of that. Anyway, so he in 1979, George, sends information to the National Archive. Mm-hmm. He contacts them. He gets a log of the U-123 U-boat.
Yeah.
And in the log, it says, on this day, they came across the Muskogee and they shot it.
They
torpedoed
it.
So,
and it gives the coordinates, doesn't it?
It gives the,
or general area. So at least now he has an idea of where the ship sank at. The submarine sank. Yeah.
Comes to find out that Captain Reinhard Hartigan, he was the captain of that U-boat.
Of the
German U-boat that shot his father's merchant ship.
Mm-hmm.
He sunk 23 ships.
Yeah.
And I had watched something on this that it was the most dangerous job, one of the most dangerous jobs to be in a U-boat, in a submarine. 1 in 10 only survived the war.
Good night.
Yeah. It was crazy. So he was one that survived. He served in Parliament in Germany. So, anyways, George actually starts writing letters.
This to me was crazy.
Writing letters to Captain Reinhard Hartigan, and they agreed to meet.
He's corresponding with the man that killed his father.
Yeah.
Times of war are obviously things are.
But George says, "Listen, man, I have no ill feelings.
Yeah.
I was serving on one side for my country. He was serving on the other for his country. And let's be clear, this guy is not the one marching people into concentration camps. Mm-hmm. He's serving his country."
But was he a Nazi?
Well, yes. Technically, that he's serving for Germany.
Yes,
but
I know.
He is a sailor
for the
just for
military
my own personal
for his
country.
Remembrance of history, real quick, is a lot of the men that served in Nazi Germany who did actually participate in concentration camps were held to accountability.
Yeah, the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. People like this that were just your regular military
You're just
people.
A military man that
were
signed
not
up.
Considered part of that. And I'm just asking as a general question because I don't know.
Clearly, he goes on and serves in Parliament and goes on to live life. He was just a sailor in the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. Going and doing what was asked of him to do by his country. And that's how George sees it. He says, listen, this guy fought on his side, I fought on my side. They ended up meeting and having a conversation. And Reinhardt's very forthcoming. He's like, yeah, I remember. We saw him early morning of, he said it was like, I think March 18th.
Mm-hmm.
He said it took us 2 hours to kind of maneuver to get in front of them to get a shot. We shot. He said it hit the engine room and the ship sunk very quickly. There's even a picture that they took of 7 crewmen from the Muskegee that survived. None of those men were his father.
I know, but this part was heartless.
What's that?
They left those men out there to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they didn't even take them as like prisoners of war. They left them there.
Submarines can't take prisoners. Where are you going to put prisoners in a submarine?
I don't know.
So he said he gave them water, cigarettes, food, and said, this is where you're at. Hopefully someone comes pick you up.
Oh my gosh.
And he even says, I was very heartbroken that no one ended up. He thought for sure that someone would come. Because usually when you get hit, the radio man calls it in, usually gives coordinates of their last known location.
I'm not cut out for war. I couldn't do it. I could not do this. Well, yeah.
It's tragic.
Yeah.
It is
This
terrible.
is why men have PTSD after they come home from war.
It is terrible.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but where's the mystery?
There is no mystery.
Okay.
I will say this, though. George then goes out and he's trying to contact all the family members of the crew members because
he wants to share what he has figured out.
No one else knows what happened to their family members. He says he ends up at least contacting 8 family members.
Okay.
Or families to let them know what had happened to their loved ones.
This reminds me of the letter story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Kind of the letter story. So, anyways, that's all. That's our story. That's where it leaves us. Really no mystery. Just a story.
Is it asking that if anyone has a family member that's a part of that? Nothing.
It just says, it does say it identified 3 people in the photo, and then it scrolls the list of crew members that were on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess it was information that if people were watching and they knew that their family member was on that ship during that time.
Their ship had gone down and they wanted to follow up with that, or their submarine. Okay. Yeah. I just thought it was kind of like I'm confused why you're here story. Not that it was a bad story, but it just didn't seem to fit with the typical theme that we see.
With the mystery?
Yeesh.
Yeesh.
Okay. Well, you guys, that is the recap of Season 1, Episode 23 of Unsolved Mysteries.
See, next week is the last one of Season 1.
Season 1. But we're not taking any breaks, so don't even count your chickens before they hatch.
Think about it. Ponder on it.
I shall not.
I think it might be a good idea.
I have big plans for this podcast, and that means no breaks. Cracking the whip. You made me show up with Salsa Eye, and I will make you show up for Season 2, Episode 1.
I made you show up for what?
Salsa Eye.
Oh, my word. First off, I didn't make you do anything.
No, in all fairness, Ben actually offered to just skip tonight and record another night. But I'm a professional. The show must go on. Never let them see you sweat. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Okay. So, we would love if you would take 3 seconds to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere that you get this amazing podcast brought to you for free every single week.
Yeah, but next week, our podcast will be brought to you by...
Who?
I don't know. But you know what? Shout out. Maybe we could be the official podcast of like Major League Baseball or something.
This podcast has nothing to do with baseball.
I know, but then they could what's the word I'm looking for?
Give you free baseball tickets?
Yes, that would be amazing. Don't you think? Spring training starting soon, and we could get some tickets.
No, I am trying to get our plug done, and you're interrupting us. Okay.
One of my dreams is to throw a first pitch at a game. That would be awesome.
You're hearing it now. Episode 23. that Ben would like to throw out the first pitch somewhere. And we
just-
live in Arizona, which is a great place to get to do it at. Any
right.
hoozles.
What you were saying.
This is a free podcast. It costs you nothing. We're
Just your time.
We're a small, independent podcast with two gorgeous hosts. And we are batting our eyes at you right now, begging and pleading for you to leave us 5-star reviews, to follow us on Facebook at Unsolved Couple Podcast on Facebook groups, Unsolved Couple Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And I'm blowing you a kiss right now. Mwah! If you would share us with a friend who loves true crime. Okay, with that, Ben, here is your question for the night. What is one thing you miss about being single? Just calm yourself. I'm only asking for one thing. I don't need a list.
Oh my gosh. That's an interesting question.
I thought it was an interesting question.
You know what? In all honesty, not a lot.
Yeah?
There's not a lot.
Okay, but I'm sure you can think of at least something.
Yeah. You know what? So you guys went away.
Uh-huh.
It was in October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the kids' birthday, we went on a little trip, and Ben had to work and also watch the animals.
It was last minute.
It was.
You literally made the decision in a week.
Mm-hmm.
I could not get the time off for work. Plus, we couldn't find anyone to watch the animals. And I was just like, you go. You were visiting your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. But you were gone on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
We're just gone for the weekend.
Yeah. And it was playoff baseball, football season. I came home from work.
Uh-huh.
I laid on the couch from 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock, because I usually go to bed around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched baseball and football all night long.
With no interruptions.
And I ate junk food, grilled some meat, and ate chips and salsa. And it was glorious. And I did that all weekend. All weekend, I just ate crappy food, and I sat on my couch and watched
So this is what you
sports.
miss about being single.
Here's
is
the thing.
unlimited television or sports.
No, unlimited sports.
And no one making you eat a vegetable.
Yeah. But I think if that was my life all the time.
Well, you told me.
That would be
and maybe this was just
terrible.
you being nice. That you were like, yeah, you're not going to complain about it. But by like day 1.5 or day 2, you were like, also, I kind of am bored and I miss my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think, a little more peace and quiet.
Yeah.
A
Fair.
little more time to yourself.
Yeah.
And I can watch sports without feeling guilty, because I'm the only one that enjoys watching sports in our household.
Technically, our daughter will watch baseball with you.
That's just this last year. She's
and
enjoyed
our oldest
watching.
son does. He watches baseball, but yeah, hours and hours of sports, and then wanting to potentially watch like recaps and highlights and understanding the nuances and the talking.
I can watch the whole game, and then I want to watch highlights. I want to watch analysts talk about it and that. So yeah, but I don't miss dating. That was the worst. Oh, that was
Ben was
awful.
so good at dating.
He
was so good at it.
Terrible at it. There's not a lot. I love my life. All right.
Okay.
What do you miss about being single?
Oh, I don't miss anything about it.
Okay.
No. So, you know what's funny? What I miss about it is I miss. So this is really silly. There are times that I have gone to purchase home decor items, and I have to think, well, I live with a boy, so I can't have this.
That's fair.
And I have to keep in mind that yeah, that I share like a bedroom with a, very masculine bearded man who likes sports. And in all honesty, if he had his way, there'd be a Colts flag hanging up and an Arizona Diamondbacks hanging up. Like your decorations, I would be very different. And you've been very graceful that I just get to do it. But I also cannot go full flower pink cottagecore insane over the top or crows and insane things. My house would be an oddity shop, I think, if I could get away with it. And so I have to kind of keep that in mind. Honestly.
And you do a great job with that.
Thank you, love. I honestly think that's probably like what I would say I miss most about being single is that maybe some of the silly decor things that I would love to do, I have to keep in consideration that not only that I am married, but that I have 3 children that live in this house who spill things. And you and I were talking about Rust-Oleum Hardware, or Restoration Hardware has a like a $10,000 cloud couch that you and I sat in once in like a showroom in Portland. And I was like,
that thing was
gosh, I love this couch
Yeah.
so much. I'm never going to own that couch.
Have you seen our couch right now?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
tore to shreds.
I have 3 children and we're homebodies. And so, yeah, it's silly things like that it's like, yeah, if I didn't have to worry about that, but would a $10,000 couch bring me the happiness that my stinking children and my handsome husband do? No. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, that's thinking
the
about
question is not lost that the fact that I would have one or the other, but there are little times that you're like, ugh, I do kind of miss that freedom of that, but is the freedom worth the cost? Like, yeah.
I guess what would
It's a funny question and a sweet question.
It's a funny question,
yeah.
but in reality, when people get asked that and they give answer, really the answer is, I miss being selfish.
Yeah.
I miss only worrying about myself, only doing
and
things,
serving my own needs.
only doing things I want to do. But really, at the end of the day, the thing that has brought me the greatest joy and happiness in life is being selfless.
Yes.
It's
in
hard.
So many capacities, but it is hard. We fight against that every day.
Yeah, I mean, we're all selfish beings.
Yeah.
I'm a super selfish person, but anyway.
This is not a philosophy podcast
Sorry.
or a self-help, but so we will see you back again here next week where Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.